So recently, Cyberpunk came out with a new patch 1.62. I think that was either yesterday or today that it came out with it. I'm doing this video on April, I think it's 11th. Yeah, it's the 11th today. And this is kind of being done on a test basis as per their patch notes here, since it is kind of a new technology. So it's a technology preview, they're calling it. And this is only working with NVIDIA RTX cards, so 4070 Ti and up, and I guess the 3090 and up as well. With other ray tracing capable graphics cards, you can do what's called photo mode, which I actually never used that in Cyberpunk 2077, but apparently you can render one frame and see what it's like. Now, the new technology, they're calling it ray tracing overdrive mode, and what this is, instead of ray tracing, it's path tracing. So what do they say? A picture is worth 1,000 words. So instead of going in and describing ray tracing versus path tracing, because they're both pretty much identical, it's following a ray of light and picking up the reflections and things like that. Ray trace or path tracing is a little bit more complex in that it follows that ray of light and how it bounces differently off of different surfaces, and um, it's a little bit more realistic. And this picture, I say, would probably be the best example of what ray tracing versus path tracing would be. So with ray tracing, it's more realistic than rasterization and gives you better angles as far as how the light would actually reflect off surfaces. But then when you get with path tracing, you're going to have more reflections, and those rays that are they're going to bounce off objects differently. They're going to be more randomized, so you get a much more detailed um, image of how the light is bouncing around a room and being diffused and all that stuff off of those objects. So you definitely get a much better, a much more realistic um, image of how that sunlight and everything bounces around. Now I'm trying this out on my new monitor. It is a 1440p ultrawide. So unfortunately we won't be doing 4K testing, but I will do 1440p and 1080p with the uh, overdrive on, and um, with DLSS on as well, to see what native versus DLSS, how that impacts the performance. So we're going to start off with 1440 ultra wide. It's weird because in the menu I have some bars going down the side. It's not the full width of my screen, so I'm hoping when we get into testing, those bars go away and we actually do ultra wide. So we're going to start off with the 1440p ultra wide, and we'll go to graphics. We'll pump this up to ray traced overdrive. High. We will turn off any kind of resolution scaling for now. Perfect. Okay, everything else. Okay, so there's the photo mode. Okay, so photo mode is new for this patch. Okay, so it hasn't been here all along. I was gonna say I never seen that before. All right, so we have it on technology preview. Perfect. All right, let's run the benchmark. Come on, run, run. There we go. Okay, so it appears this is struggling. An average of, well, I guess it's not average, it's the current FPS. For some reason, MSI hasn't popped up yet. So we're hitting 15. Oh, we're skyrocketing now. No, we're dipping. This, I was not expecting this. I would expect this at 4K and not at 1440p. Yeah, we'll drop it down from 1440p ultra wide down to like normal 16:9 ratio and see if that makes much of a difference. But right now, wow, that I was not expecting this low of performance. So that, yeah, that kind of hurts. Look at that, max of 24. Crazy. All right, let's go and turn DLSS on. We'll turn some. Do we want to do frame generation? Let's start off with just super resolution. We'll go with quality settings. I got the sharpness set to 1. Let's see what this does. Let's apply it and run the benchmark again. Let's reset. Ooh, huge boost there. We're getting double the frames now. Well, staying consistent. It's not having huge jumps or spikes. We get an average of 30 with a 1% low of 26. Well, it's definitely not going to be playable at this type of frame rate. So I'm thinking, well, we'll go turn the frame generation on. But maybe I have the sharpness set to 1. I think the default is 0.05. So let's put it down to 0.05 and see what kind of change that makes to the average FPS. Yeah, that made no difference whatsoever, really, to the performance. However, I bet when we turn the frame generation on, that'll probably bump it up to a more playable FPS. But again, still, we're hitting 30 with a 1% low of 26. Even the 0.1% low of 25, so it's not very jittery. However, as it stands now, I wouldn't be playing with ray tracing on, because this is just silly. Again, this is a new technology. They're just putting it out there more of a preview versus actual gameplay, for probably more along the lines of people playing it, testing it, reporting issues, things like that. But at 14, I would expect this at 4K, not 1440p. That's nuts. All right, let's turn on frame generation. We're gonna go back to quality and give this a whirl. Okay, this is much better. Okay, now we're at a more playable frame rate. But this is definitely maxing the GPU now. We're up at 230 watts. $65 with a 1% low of 55. No, this is, again, it's not too jittery. Even the 0.1% low is still pretty high at 43. I don't think you would notice it very much. I don't see any huge spikes on the frame time graph. So this would be a pretty smooth experience. However, this is just benchmark mode. It is not exactly the best indicator of what you would experience in-game. I find that any of these benchmark modes don't actually represent the performance you get in-game. So they're a good comparison tool when you're trying to compare side by side, like what we're going to do here, different resolutions and all that, but when it comes to actual gameplay, it's probably not going to be the best. Anyway, let's drop the video resolution down to 16 by 9, which is 2560 by 1440p, which most people would have. And we'll go back. Let's turn all this off. Ray tracing is still on. Perfect. Apply and well, a slight improvement in native. It jumped a whole 5 FPS from 15 to 20. So not a whole lot of gain by running it in 16:9 instead of ultra wide, but we'll see what happens when we turn DLSS on and then frame generation on. It's unfortunate because I have not played this game enough. I've gotten into it, I got a few hours into the game, and then kind of lost interest. It's a really nice looking game. I just, yeah, don't have the time to really dig into it, unfortunately. I don't think I will be getting the DLC when it comes out, considering I haven't even played the played through the main campaign yet. All right, let's turn on DLSS. We'll go with some quality settings and run benchmark. I doubt we're going to get a huge improvement. Again, it's probably going to jump up to like 35, maybe 40. Okay, so yeah, we're at 40. Not bad, but still probably not the best average FPS to play this game. Well, hopefully as they go through and optimize, the FPS gets a lot better. There's probably still some driver updates that need to be done on NVIDIA's side to help improve the performance, as well as in-game patches to improve the performance as well. But I highly doubt any of the lower tier cards will be able to run this. I'm curious as what the 3090 and 3090 Ti can do, considering 4070 Ti is supposed to have better ray tracing capabilities with the same performance of a 3090. So I don't know if outside of native, like if you're doing ray tracing, if there's much more of an improvement with the 4070 Ti over the 3090 Ti. Alright, so we didn't do too shabby there. Let's turn on frame generation. Based on what we just saw, this is probably going to jump considerably. Alright. Okay, yeah, this is much better. So we jumped what? It went from I think it went from 40-ish, 40-something up to 77, so that's a big improvement in the average FPS. The 1% is 66, and the 1.1% low is at 60, so that's not bad, having your 0.1% low at 60 FPS. And again, still on the frame time graph there's no huge spikes, which is always a good sign. That just means it'll be smooth while you're playing it, and won't be very jittery. But yeah, that's crazy performance. Alright, so that was where we're looking at 1440. Let's drop the resolution down to 1080. Let's see how that goes. I'll turn everything back to off, go to video, and okay, let's take a look at 1080p ultra wide performance. So 1080p full screen, and make sure everything is still high and ultra. Oh, it's off. Great, let's run it. Set afterburner. Yeah, a little bit of improvements, but still not much. Even at native, you still can't play this at 1080p. 25 FPS, like you only got dropping from 16:9 1440 down to ultrawide 1080p, where we gained 5 FPS. That is nothing. On a side note, I am definitely loving the ultra-wide 1440p screen. It's made a huge difference in, well, two things. Gaming, it's more immersive. I love having it so much larger. And on top of that, for work that I do when I'm at home, yeah, it's great being able to split the screens. It's amazing. Anyway, so we ended off with an average of 28 and a low of 22. So let's go and turn super resolution on quality. And again, the way it's been going, it seems like it might double it to 50. Let's restart Afterburner. Yeah, it kind of doubled to 50, so we're at 48. Just shy of it. The one thing I'm impressed with, and again, this is just a benchmark, it's just how consistent the frame time graph is. There's no large pings up and down either way. It's pretty flat. The 1% low is at 39 versus the average of 48 right now, and the 0.1% low is at 34, so it's still pretty smooth. As far as benchmark tools go, this is one of the shortest. It takes, I think, like a minute to run through, which is kind of nice when doing a video like this, because you can kind of let the whole thing just run from start to finish and see how it does. I would like to see, though, side by side, the difference in ray tracing capabilities, what it looks like on screen between ray tracing and bath tracing. So yeah, the average bumped up to 51 with a minimum of 42. And I bet you we turn frame generation on, and it'll probably jump quite a bit more. It was at 77, I think, with the 16:9 ratio for 1440p. So I'm curious to see at what ultra-wide 1080p gives us. All right, so that's a pretty big bump. So we went from, what was it, 46 or so up to 80. Again, not much change though from going from 1440p down to 1080p. You're not really getting a whole lot of performance bump. So if I were to play this, I would just be playing it at 1440p ultra wide settings, because you're not getting a huge bump in performance by either changing the aspect ratio or going down in resolution. And again, even with this, the frame time graph, it's pretty flat, little tiny up and down bumps here and there, but nothing major. Alright, so after this, we're going to go and put it down to the 16:9 aspect ratio for 1080p. So we'll go back in here, we'll turn frame generation off, DLSS off. Let's apply that. Has everything stayed the same? Yep. And then we're going to go down to 1080p. I was going to try this on my 7900 XT, but again, lo and behold, you can only play it on the 40 series GPUs from an NVIDIA or a 3090 or 3090 Ti. Alright, let's reset Afterburner here. There we go. Oh, there we go. So what did that go from? I think it was... I don't know, I don't think we picked up anything except maybe a couple FPS, if even that. I can't remember right now off the top of my head, but I don't think we were passing... I think we're just around 30, maybe the high 20s when we're at the ultra-wide aspect ratio. You notice a big difference in the quality when he dropped down from 1440 down to 1080p. It's not nearly as sharp. I don't notice too much going from my 4K screen down to the 1440p, but I do notice a big difference from 1440p down to 1080p. Alright, let's turn DLSS on. Oh, graphics, DLSS. There we go. And let's run that. So again, we almost doubled the average FPS. So it seems like just regular DLSS turned on, we double the FPS from native. And I forgot to mention that this is DLSS 3.0. This got updated in Cyberpunk a couple of months ago. So if you are running the 4070 series over the 3090 series, using DLSS is definitely going to give you a little bit more of a bump in performance because it's DLSS 3, and I do not believe the 3090s support DLSS 3. You're stuck using DLSS 2. So yeah, we had an average of, per the in-game benchmark, of 63 with a low, which is a 1% low of 46. So not too bad there. Getting up a little bit, but still, we're talking 1080p. We should be getting that kind of performance without having to use DLSS. Alright, we got frame generation on. Let's see how this goes. Alright, so apparently frame generation bumps us up to an average of 96. Oh, we're gonna have to restart this. Okay, so we are at 98 with a 1% low of 85. 84. Okay, so again, much better frame rate with frame generation on. And we're using, okay, so, oh, that was one thing I have to look back when I go back to the video footage, because right now, memory, VRAM, it's almost 10.5 gigs of VRAM, and being a 4070 Ti, NVIDIA has graced us with 12 gigs, which is pathetic in my opinion. This card should have been at least a 16 gigabyte card, but no, they stuck 12 gigs in this thing, and we're already hitting up near that at 1080p. So that is just foolish. Anyway, we ended up on an average of 105 with minimum of 50. So I guess the minimums did dip a little bit more on here. Yeah, I can't see myself playing with this. That's not the kind of performance I would like to play with, and to get a halfway decent frame rate, you need to drop down to 1080p, and then there you're kind of sacrificing quality to get that 1080p game. So I would rather play this at 1440p with just native and no ray tracing on, because this overdrive performance is too much of a performance killer in this game. But again, this is just a preview technology. They still have a lot of kinks and things to work through, and hopefully they'll do that rather quickly. And I would be curious to see what the actual benefit by doing comparison between ray tracing and path tracing, how that actually looks on a side-by-side comparison. Anyway, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Think about liking the channel for any future videos that come up, and have a good one.